A room packed of great guests, a great diverse group here. My name is Khalid Walid. I'm the EuroPal Forum events officer. I'd like to thank you all for coming today at this very, very hot afternoon. And thanks for your patience. We hope that the refreshments kind of refreshed you for the next an hour and a half. We were told that we have to finish at 9 o'clock, spot on, so we'll have our speakers and then we'll have a session for Q&A. So for the Q&A, if you can keep your questions directly to the speakers and very short. I'd like to hand over to Paul Monaghan, Member of Parliament for the SNP, who's hosting us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khalid, and thank you all very much indeed for coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's heartening indeed to see so many people here and indeed such a diverse audience. We are, of course, here to have a general discussion about the UK's role in stabilising the Middle East and North Africa. I think it's an opportune time, perhaps, to have such a discussion, given the last couple of weeks here at Westminster with all of the discussion around Mr. Blair's recent history in the Middle East. We have also had the Chilcot report, which I'm sure you've all read in full now, all 2.5 million no? I think the more that you delve into the Chilcot report, the worse it gets. And I think that the Chilcot report, if nothing else, highlights a number of concerns with human rights, with the role of government here in the UK, and with the misrepresentation of the situation in the Middle East and, of course, the dramatic consequences that it has had. Those consequences, I think, can be clearly seen across the Middle East, in my view, not least in Libya and in Syria, where clearly we've got a humanitarian crisis in terms of refugees and people fleeing conflict. I was in Jordan recently, and we have some honour guests from Jordan here with us this evening. And the problem of refugees, I think, is having a significant impact on the people of Jordan. And I think that we should commend Jordan as a nation for doing everything that it possibly can for humanitarian efforts to help with the refugees. Of interest, I think, also this evening is the issue of Palestine, which is a conflict that troubles me greatly as an individual, but my party also, and many other people in the UK, perhaps particularly in Scotland, I would add. Beyond that, I think we have people here from other nations that perhaps prompt us to take an interest in the use of the death penalty. I am, for my one of my roles here at Westminster is that I'm Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Abolition of the Death Penalty. And I think in some of the countries and states in the Middle East, we are seeing extensive use of the death penalty and indeed unusual and cruel punishments that we would want to, I think, encourage an end of. What we should really be focused on this evening is a discussion about how best we can work to stabilise the situation in the Middle East and in North Africa, and to enable the people that live there to access the opportunities that we feel that we have here in the UK for peace, prosperity and partnership. And I think that that is a noble objective and one that we should focus on. And I know that myself and my parliamentary colleagues that are here this evening work very hard indeed to try to further that particular objective in the UK for the people that live in these troubled regions. The UK Parliament can clearly have a positive impact, and I think it's important that we all work together to develop strong relationships between both houses of Parliament here in the UK and the countries of the Middle East and North Africa. That's certainly the case for Scotland, and that's an aspiration that my colleagues and I work hard, as I've said already, to further. We have some honour guests with us. I'd just like to say who they are. First of all, we have Haneen Zoubi, who's a member of the Knesset, who will be talking to us soon, and great privilege to have her here. We have Mohammed El Mahdi, who's a member of the Bahrain Parliament and also chair of the Permanent Committee for Supporting the Palestinian People. And I would encourage you to talk to as many of these individuals after the discussion and make yourself known to them. We have Zaher al-Suit, an MP of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and chair of the Palestinian Parliamentary Committee. Issa Emekeke, MP, Member of Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco and a member of the Justice and Development Party and Deputy Chair of the Al-Quds Parliamentary Association. We also had Rafizi MP, a member of the Malaysian Parliament, member of the Pendang, Selangor, and Vice President and Secretary General of the People's Justice Party in Malaysia. Darul Leking MP, member of the Malaysian Parliament, member of Parliament for Penampang, and very welcome indeed. We have Budi Yastri MP, member of the Indonesian Parliament and a member of the National Mandate Party. And we have Sungkax, how do you pronounce that, Zaher? I'm very sorry. Sukamta, member of the Indonesian Parliament also, and a member of the Prosperous Justice Party. So all of these individuals are very welcome. We will have some talks, and after that I would invite those individuals to make any comments or ask any questions that they might have. I'm going to pay a special word of thanks to Zaher Birawi, who sits on my right. Zaher is very active in developing relationships between the UK Parliament here and other parliaments and parliamentarians and state leaders and stakeholders indeed across the Middle East. So thank you very much, Zaher, to you and your colleagues for all of your hard work, and I'll hand over to you to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks for all the supporters of Palestine in this country. Thanks so much for all of the attendees of this important event. I would like to start with thanking Dr. Monaghan, the MP, for hosting this event, because we consider this event a very important event to bring parliamentarians from Arab and Muslim countries, not necessarily Muslims only, some Christian MPs with us today. So we want all those who support Palestine and the justice in Palestine to work together closely in order to achieve peace to the Palestinians. So I would like to thank Paul Monaghan for hosting this event and for his great work for supporting the rights of Palestinians and the freedom of Palestine. Also, I extend my thanks to the panel speakers for accepting to be part of this discussion tonight. Jenny Tonge, Haneen Zoubi, Grahame Morris, and Mr. Muhammad Rafizi Ramli. Also in my name and in the name of EuroPal team and on behalf of you all, I thank and welcome our MPs from abroad, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from Bahrain, from Jordan, from Tunis, from Palestine. All of them, they came all this distance in order to talk to you, because one of our main objectives in EuroPal is to build the bridges between all the societies who believe in peace, people who believe in justice. So we knew about those MPs that they are working hard in order to support all peace and justice issues, and they focus on Palestine issue. Why? Because they believe Palestine issue is an international issue. It is not for Palestinians only who are suffering under the occupation. It has an impact on every single society in the world, in a way or another. So we thank them for their hard work and for coming from Indonesia, from Malaysia, far away from England, from the UK, in order to express their concern about the situation in Palestine, to express their support to the Palestinians, and to try to work together with all of the MPs who are concerned about the situation in the Middle East, which has an impact here in our country and in Europe. So we want all those people who work for the good to work together, shoulder to shoulder, in order to counter the terrorism, not only the terrorism in Paris or in London or in any of the European cities, but to counter the terrorism of the state of Israel also against the Palestinians. So the terrorism is terrorism. And we all believe that we will not justify terrorism. And we need to hear from you how we can go forward. If we want peace in the Middle East, if we want peace in the world, why don't we come together and say it clearly that we are against the occupation? Why don't we say it clearly that we are against the aggression against the Palestinian people? So this is the aim of this discussion. Today we need everyone who has an idea, has a question, to raise it loudly, to say what we should do as a British, what we should do as Scottish, what we should do as Welsh, as Irish, as Arabs and Muslims and Christians and Jewish, what we should do in order to stop this crisis, to stop this massacre of the Palestinians. Why we should stay 70 years under occupation until we see the people of the world, especially in the West, to do a serious practical steps. We need this kind of work together in order to achieve the peace, not only for us and our people in Palestine, but for us here in the UK, in Europe, in the rest of the world, because we believe solving the issue of Palestine is the key for peace and stability, not only in the Middle East, but for the whole world. We believe in the title of this seminar. Palestine is the key for stability and peace in the Middle East and beyond. And this will reflect the discussion we expect today, how we can achieve this peace. We need from the British government, from parties, to come forward a real practical step to achieve the peace, to understand the situation in Palestine and the impact of this situation on our societies. To support the peace is not to stand silent and watching what is happening in Palestine. We need a thorough discussion about these practical steps, how to support peace. And we need also to work together. We need to work together, not only the MPs and NGOs and public and individuals and organizations, to work hard, because we know our struggle is not easy. I am not here expecting after this discussion that Palestine will, their suffering will be alleviated. No, but we want at least to show them that we are supporting them, we are caring about their situation. I expect tonight to discuss thoroughly our role as individuals, organizations, politicians, government, how we can do this and how we can work for the freedom of Palestine. Thank you very much once more, and I would like to thank the team from EuroPal Forum who made this event successful. And especially I want to mention Ragad and Khalid. And also I want to thank once more Dr. Paul Monaghan and his assistants, mainly Shannon, for her great work with us. Thank you very much, and I hope you will find it very useful discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zaher. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 speakers this evening, and the first of them is Grahame Mohd, Member of Parliament. Grahame is also the chair of the Labour Friends of Palestine and Middle East organisation. Grahame.
Thanks very much, Paul. And I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. As Paul's indicated, I'm a Labour Member of Parliament. I represent a constituency in the northeast of England called Easington, and I'm chair of Labour Friends of Palestine and a long-term advocate for Palestinian rights. I'm here today because I support justice and human rights and international law, not just here in the UK, but everywhere, including in Palestine and Israel. And that's why it's a pleasure to be here with representatives from a cross-section of political parties from within the UK, and an even greater privilege to be sharing a platform with parliamentarians from other parts of the world, colleagues from Jordan. I'm especially honoured to be sitting next to Haneen al-Zoubi, the member of the Knesset. I was going to say something about the terrible times that Haneen's been through, but I'm sure she can describe it better than I can. But it's an honour to be here in solidarity with colleagues like Haneen and colleagues who share our fundamental commitment to these principles, these fundamental principles in human rights. I was asked this evening to say something of the challenges facing those who champion the Palestinian cause, both here in the United Kingdom and in occupied Palestine too. The struggle for justice, freedom and human rights in Palestine is one that's been internationalised, bringing millions of people from all backgrounds together. And I think it's unlike any campaign that we've seen since the campaign against apartheid South Africa. Quite recently, I was struck in the context of American politics. I find it quite fascinating, scary at times, but fascinating nonetheless. And I know the Republican convention is going on at the moment, but Bernie Sanders, during the Democratic primaries, he made a criticism of Israel during the course of the Democratic primary race. And for me, that was a huge watershed. It was the first time the status quo on Israel had been challenged in a mainstream and widely followed political debate. I think it's precisely because of the growing strength of Palestinian campaigns and the shift in public opinion in the nations who have traditionally supported Israel unconditionally that the opposition and hostility towards us as advocates for justice, peace and freedom is increasing. In the UK, our government should be sticking to its obligations not to aid in activities contrary to international law, but instead the government is making it more difficult to challenge Israel's actions and Israel's policies that violate international law and all legal norms and conventions. Rather than reflect on the policies passed by local government and indeed devolved assemblies and parliaments, the response from our government in the UK has been to attack local democracy, introducing new rules, although they have no legal basis incidentally, and are a transparent exercise in intimidation towards local authorities, trying to force them into abandoning ethical procurement policies when it comes to Israel. And there's also been a concerted attempt to conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism in order to stifle and shut down debate. When my good friend Richard Burden wrote to the Tory Cabinet Minister Matthew Hancock regarding the government's move to force local authorities to procure from companies involved in illegal occupation, the Minister replied that choosing not to finance the occupation would fuel anti-Semitism. Well, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding and a fundamental error of judgment there. I know we want to allow maximum time for discussion. We have some excellent speakers from the international community who are terrific advocates. So I want to just reflect on the title of today's event, which is the keys to peace and stability in the Middle East. The keys to peace and stability in the Middle East, in my view, are justice and freedom for both Israelis and Palestinians, and this can't be achieved until the international community puts pressure on Israel to end the occupation. Yeah. In the United Kingdom, from our own experience in Northern Ireland, and I'm delighted to say that Mark Durkin is here with us, a man with a great depth of experience and knowledge in this area. But from our experience in Northern Ireland, we can appreciate the crucial role that's played by civil society organisations in conflict resolution and transformation. Their ability to speak sometimes difficult truths, to inspire and empower the public, to reach across political barriers and indeed across political divisions in order to engage a wider audience is invaluable. This is why I fear that they are being targeted by the Israeli government by its supporters in other countries. Ultimately, those who wish for the occupation to continue and oppose Israel abiding by international laws and conventions are on the attack because they realise the tide of public opinion is changing, and it's changing in favour of the Palestinian cause. And they realise the importance that civil society plays in that debate. It's because of the growing strength of the campaign for Palestine that we've met with intensified vilification and indeed demonisation by an ever more desperate opposition. I believe, friends, that public opinion is undergoing a sea change, and I'm convinced now more than ever that history is on our side.
Thank you very much indeed, Graham. And ladies and gentlemen, you will have the chance to ask questions after the speakers have spoken. So reflect on Graham's wise words. We're now going to hand over to Haneen al-Zoubi, who's a Palestinian member of the Israeli Knesset. Haneen?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Can I start?
Of course.
First of all, I would thank you very much, all of you, which choose to come here. I want to thank the EuroPal Forum. I want to thank Zaher and Dr. Paul and Shannon and everyone. I will not forget Ragad and Khalid. When we talk about the Palestinian issue in Britain, it is actually not a foreign issue. You should treat it as a local issue. It's also your local issue. You have a direct responsibility about this issue. And it is not just that, because you cannot answer any issue related with the Middle East without answering what's happening with the Palestinians and what's happening with the Palestinian issue. It's also because it is not a humanitarian issue. It's a political issue. It's an issue of justice. It's an issue of people whom have been expelled. 85% have been expelled from their home 70 years ago. The Palestinian issue didn't start it in 1967. And even when we talk about the Palestinian state in the occupied territories, it is not the whole issue. If we talk about justice, we must talk also about justice for the refugees, about justice for Haneen, for 1,200,000 Palestinians who are citizens now in Israel, whom didn't immigrate to Israel. It was Israel, we should remember, that immigrated to them. And when we talk about justice, we talk also about the collective rights of the Israelis within my homeland, above my homeland. But we cannot accept the definition of Israel as a Jewish state as long as we talk about justice. If we really want to talk about justice, I cannot accept any definition of a state which excludes me from my homeland, which wants to guarantee privileges to the Jews, to the Israelis, on the expense of the Palestinians. We have a vision of democracy. We struggle for democratic rights. We struggle for equality. But we know that we cannot do that within a Jewish state. We know that there is no way for democracy and for equality that a Jewish state can implement. There is no way that a Jewish state can be democratic. And this is also you, the supporters of justice, the supporters of stability, because if you want stability, you must seek and struggle for justice. And I am an example. We're supposed to be the strongest part of the Palestinians. We have been elected by 500,000 Palestinians. And Israel perceives us as a threat. Not because we throw stones. We don't even throw stones. We just talk. We want to address the Israeli public opinion. We struggle for a state for all of its citizens. And this is why Israel perceives us as a threat. So democracy is a threat to the Jewish state. Equality is the threat of a Jewish state. And if we want to tackle this issue, if we want to speak about justice, let's let Israel speak about itself. Forget about occupation now. Forget about 2 million Palestinians in the biggest jail in the world, which are outside the Israeli consciousness. The Palestinian suffering is outside the Israeli consciousness. They are talking, it's part of the Israeli discourse, that the Jewish blood is not equal to the Palestinian blood. You can hear that from Amkaz. You can hear that you must follow these declarations and stop this lie that Israel is a democracy. Israel is not a democracy. And we cannot accept, yes, I am a democracy and I am defending myself and I share the Western people, the Western values of justice and equality. First of all, justice and equality are not our Western values. Are not our Western values. Not for Jews also. Especially not for the Jews. They are not Western values. They are universalistic values. But if this is the main logic behind the Israeli policies of killing, of land confiscation, of expelling, of ethnic cleansing, let's analyze this sentence or claim that Israel is a democracy by looking at the Israeli list of laws. Let the Knesset talk about itself. I am talking to you now, and I missed a vote in the Knesset. Now, after half an hour, you will see it tomorrow, the law of expansion, expanding 90 Knesset members can expel and put a veto for the Arab representatives, MKs, whom have been elected by 500,000 people. Now, while we are talking, they are explaining, yes, why we are terrorists. Why we, not Hamas, not Daesh. Israel is not struggling against Daesh. Israel is not struggling against Hamas. Of course, Hamas is not a terrorist organization, but this is another discussion. You are struggling and fighting me, our freedom of expression. We took our citizenship seriously. Okay, you are describing 5 million Palestinians as terrorists in the Gaza and in the West Bank. What about the citizens? What about those 1,200,000 whom accept their citizenship seriously, who want to struggle in the framework of a political struggle? We want to we take the democratic tool seriously. We run for the Knesset, we vote, and we talk about citizenship, but not as a tool of controlling us, not as a tool of oppressing our identity, not as a tool of taming us. And this is how Israel understands citizenship. Citizenship is not a tool for rights. It is not a tool and a framework of rights and of empowering and of democracy. Citizenship, not the West Bank, not Gaza, citizenship. As long as we are talking about Palestinians, even citizenship is a tool for taming the Palestinians, of oppressing them. The conclusion must be, we must just read the map. We must read the map, and we must face it. Zionism is a racist ideology. It is a racist system. And we must say, no, we cannot recognize the definition of a Jewish state because it is by definition a racist state. And if anyone from the Europeans is afraid, we the Palestinians want also to liberate the Europeans from the Zionist propaganda. It seems sometimes that it is not enough to liberate ourselves, that when we sit not with courageous people like Paul and the others, we sit secretly with other MPs who has not the courage to say, to criticize Israel as a Jewish state, to criticize occupation, and suddenly we have a feeling, stop talking about to liberate the Palestinians. Really, let's support the Europeans and let's liberate the Europeans from the Zionist lobby and from the Zionist propaganda. And if we say so, it is so. No one can say propaganda when you have this list. A terrorist law which decide as a punishment for throwing a stone 6 years. If you are an Israeli who you kill the Palestinians, they will just in an easy way decrease your punishment. But if you are a Palestinian who throws stones, maybe throw stones without causing any damage. You even don't need to prove that you don't cause any damage, and they don't need to prove that you did cause a damage. It's a minimum of 6 years. I am a Palestinian. I am one from the section of my people whom Israel didn't expel in 1948, but I am forbid by law to live within 60% of the land, not the West Bank. Listen to me. I am talking about the official borders of 48, which constitute Israel now. I am forbid from living within 574 community village by law. By law. How Israel can explain this to you? She knows how to explain this to us in the Knesset. When we say this is a racist, this is a fascist, this is an apartheid law, they would answer us. But we are a Jewish state. They would not answer you. They would not answer Paul that because it is a Jewish state. But they are so frank with us. They don't, يعني, إيش?
They don't hide it.
Yeah, they don't hide it. We are a Jewish state, and this is an assumption. Within a Jewish state, the land is for the Jew. The Jew must keep the majority. So it is not about equality and not about democracy. This is we who are struggling for democracy. And just having the vision, and they hate me, I know, they hate me. But really, they don't hate me because of personal reasons, because of political reasons, because of the vision of state for all of its citizens. They don't want to hear democracy and struggle for democracy. So the problem is not Daesh, the problem is not Hamas, the problem is not any kind of terrorism. The problem is the mere political existence of the Palestinians. Political existence. The Palestinians, they can يتحملوني. شو يتحملوني يعني? They can tolerate me as long as I define myself Arab Israeli. What's the mean by Arab? What this means? What is supposed to mean Arab Israeli? Under the British mandate, we were not Arab British. We were Arabs, Palestinians. And now we are part of our people. So as long they want a Palestinians case, as long as you don't challenge the laws of the political game. And the laws of the political game is not to talk about the core of racism. It is not to talk, okay, you can criticize occupation and we will say Hamas. You will criticize occupation and we will say we are defending ourselves. But it's so embarrassing when we talk about the 83 laws of citizenship, laws of family unification, laws of using the land, laws of confiscating the land, laws of political persecution. What is supposed to mean that 90 Knesset member can put a veto on the Palestinian representative in the Knesset? And how the British government can continue dealing with Israel as a normal state? What can Israel do till we say, okay, we cannot deal with Israel as a normal state? Something we should let Israel pay the price of the occupation and of the oppression. But now the Europeans and the Americans pay the expenses of occupation. The Europeans themselves pay the expansion. When you sign any economic treatment with Israel, understand that this is a support of occupation. This is a support of oppression. And this is the الخلاص. شو الخلاص? Salvation. That I am a normal state. When we say in the Knesset to Israel, you will be isolated, she will answer us, no. I am not. I am upgrading my relations with the Arab world and with the Arab regimes. Netanyahu said 1 month ago, we have the best relations with the Arab regimes. Yes, you don't have a problem with the Arab regimes, you have a problem with the Arab people. You don't have a problem with the Arab regime. Yes, your allies is the dictatorships. Yes, of course. You don't want the democratic Arab world. You don't want the Arab Spring to succeed. You had democracy to yourself and you had democracy to the Arab world. You don't want all of the Israelis, the agreements and relations, most of it secret, with dictatorships. Democracy, Israel will not benefit from democracy, because if we were really a democratic state and if we have really a democratic foreign policy, if we really want to talk on behalf of the British people, then we would change our foreign policy. British cannot say that the British government cannot claim that she is representing the British people as long as she is supporting Israel and the Israeli policies. Because according to statistics that I know, most of the British public opinion knows the situation, understands the injustice, the huge injustice, the deep injustice that is taking place against the Palestinians every day. So yes, we need also the Europeans to be strong, that the governments must also represent your attitudes. The government cannot use your taxes in order to support policies that you disagree with. And we cannot just fight against the whole world. We cannot. We cannot also fight against the occupation, fight against oppression, fight against the injustice that Israel is conducting, and also actually fight against the European policies, fight against the whole world. We cannot. And when we say we cannot accept the definition of Israel as a Jewish state, we believe at the same time in equality between us and the Israelis who live now in my homeland. No one tells us that you want to throw the Israelis on the sea. No, we don't want. We have really a democratic vision. And we should define the rights of the Israelis within the state of all of its citizens. This is maybe we don't do it enough and in a courageous way. We must also, as Palestinians, define, okay, what about the rights of the Israelis? We recognize their rights as a collective. But this is something so far and so different than recognizing Israel as a Jewish state, because this is the problem. This is the justification of controlling the Palestinians who are citizens, and another legal system to control East Jerusalem, another legal and political system to control Gaza, and another one to control the West Bank. And I will end, because I think I took 5 minutes. I will end by
5 minutes.
I will end by saying we must also criticize ourselves as Palestinians. Why Israel is now so obsessive in Judaizing everything and in controlling our political struggle as citizens? Because she is so comfortable with its relations with the Palestinian Authority. See, she is so comfortable. She has controlled the Palestinian siege, wall, and security coordination. That's it. So simple. Israel can live with the status quo. Israel can live with this status quo for another 50. And this is not just a status quo. Now Israel is worse than Israel now, with 50% of its society supporting transfer for us. Do you hear me? 50% according to the Israeli Institution of Democracy, from the Israelis supporting transfers of Palestinian citizens in Nazareth, in Haifa, in Lod, in Ramli, from our homeland. And 80%, listen to me, 80% from the Israeli society doesn't support equal rights for the Palestinian citizens. And Israel is becoming now adopting a fascist elements. If I am an Israeli professor in a university and I wrote on my Facebook, let's pay attention to the suffering of the two sides, that's it. Pay attention to the suffering. Human, very human and simple sentence. They call him. You should not talk about both sides. There is no, we would not recognize the suffering of the Palestinians. So the Palestinians are outside the consciousness of the Israelis, because we should admit that. We are so comfortable to the Israelis. If the Israelis want to pick a victim, they would choose the Palestinians as their victim. Thank you. I am used to another environment.
Thank you very much indeed, Haneen, for such a powerful speech, and exactly 5 minutes. Well done. We're now going to hear from Baroness Tonge, who's a Liberal Democrat member of the House of Lords.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. And I can't hope to equal that. But I want to perhaps take a slightly different tack. We all know what the issues are. We've been through them over and over again. And I just briefly, to begin with, want to tell you what I am tired of. I'm tired, first of all, of having it implied that I'm being anti-Semitic when I criticise Israel or support Palestine. I'm not, then let's waste time, don't waste time. I'm not just tired, I'm utterly sick of it. Yes. Because I know in my heart of hearts that that is a ploy to shut us up. Yeah. And I know in my heart of hearts that I am not anti-Semitic, I have never been anti-Semitic, and I never will be anti-Semitic. What I am anti is injustice. And that is what Israel dishes out every day, relentlessly, to the Palestinians. So don't be afraid of being accused. If you feel as I do, what I say to them is, look, if you want to test that, take me to court. Take me to court, and I will defend myself. That's one thing I'm tired of. The next thing I'm a little bit tired of is going to lots of meetings. We have lots and lots and lots of meetings. And I always think, oh, no, another meeting. I was in the West Midlands at the weekend, a brilliant afternoon, a fair that was held for Palestine, and lots of people doing lots of things, lots of projects, aid projects, helping Palestinian communities. It was wonderful stuff. And the thing is, I think, oh no, not another meeting, but always when I come away from those meetings, I'm inspired to go to another one. And that is because of all of you, because of the work that you do and the inspiration you give people. And the last thing I want to mention that I'm really, really tired of is the people who help me are in the audience, but I think we have been tabling at least 6 questions a week on what Israel is up to for about 6-7 years now, something like that, long time. And I'm getting a bit tired of the fact that the government always comes back with the answer that they are making representations to the Israeli government and pointing out that something is against international law. It comes back relentlessly. They never, ever say that they're taking any action. Never, ever. And I'm getting tired of that. And one thing we must ask more and more questions on. Thank you very, very much to this brave, courageous lady who's come over from the Knesset, is we've got to start asking more questions about what is going on inside Israel and how they are treating their Arab citizens. It is disgraceful. you will hear Mark Regev and the rest of them talking about the only democracy in the Middle East. What a wonderful democracy Israel has. They just go on and on and on about it. It is nothing of the sort. It is an apartheid state. And let's be honest about it. And let's call a spade, insult to spades. Now, the next thing I want to say to you is, what do we do about it? We can all rant and rave, and I do my fair share. Number one, we have got to support the BDS and the boycott campaign. It has to be our major task. It needs to be the real task that we concentrate on, because it's hurting already. Companies are pulling out. We've heard about Veolia, but companies are pulling out of working with the Israelis, and it is hurting Israel, and they don't like it. That's why they're passing laws, and that's why our government is trying to restrict our activities. So keep on with it. And if you can't do a big contract, well, then go and stand outside Marks and Spencer's and slap stickers on the dates, or potatoes. Once I went into Marks and Spencer's for some potatoes, and they're all Israeli potatoes. Had to come out without any potatoes. A lot slimmer as a result. So BDS, yes, I'm racing through. The next thing I say to Palestinians everywhere, whether you're the diaspora, whether you're refugees, whether you're living in Israel, whether you're living in the West Bank, whether you're living in Gaza, you have got to get your political act together. The one thing we get thrown at us as campaigners for Palestine is, well, there's nobody to negotiate with because Hamas and Fatah are still separate and they're still quarrelling. They have got, you have got, and you, if there's diaspora in the audience, you have got to put pressure. You've got to put pressure on them to do something about that. And that must lead to free and fair elections like they had in 2006, which must lead to them and the international community accepting the result, which didn't happen in 2006. And that is something we don't hear very much about, but it is absolutely essential that that happens. And finally, I want to get to a rather sort of complicated concept for you. Israel is occupying the West Bank and Gaza. I'm not quibbling about Gaza, they still occupy Gaza. You go there, you'll see. They are occupying, they are the occupiers. We and the European Union and the Americans are paying for that occupation. It is utterly crazy. I cannot think, historians amongst you might be able to tell me, where a foreign power occupied another country and another foreign power paid the costs. It is just inconceivable that it would happen, and we're doing it, and we've been doing it for 60 years.
Yeah.
And I am sick of it. We pay the costs of UNRWA, we pay funds to the Palestinian Authority, which then they don't pass on as salaries, particularly to the people in in Gaza. I mean, it is absolute nonsense what is going on. If Israel is occupying, they should pay for the occupation. And there is another twist, because Israel will tell you that they're not occupying West Bank or Gaza. It is their land, because the Torah says so. God gave it to them. They've got the legal document. It's all there written down. It's their land, so they're not occupying. Well, so if they're not occupying, the same argument applies. Why are we paying all their costs for security and education and looking after the refugees? It is complete Alice in Wonderland when you start thinking about it. And we have got to start going for our elected representatives, going for the Israeli government, going for whoever we can think of on this subject, because it has got to stop. And our opportunity, finally, I think, is going to come, paradoxically, because I'm a great Remainer, it's going to come with the exit from the European Union. Our government is very, very fond of sheltering behind the European Union. Oh, we can't move unilaterally, we have to go with the European Union. Now, when we're out of the European Union, it will be just us. and therefore they have no excuse anymore. We can take responsibility. Balfour Declaration was our responsibility. Looking after the indigenous people of the area is our responsibility, and we have never fulfilled that responsibility. So coming out of the European Union might just be our opportunity to sit on the government and make them take action. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Baroness. And our final speaker is Rafizi Ramli from the Malaysian Parliament, Secretary General of the People's Justice Party.
Thanks a lot, Paul. It's heartening to see so many people in solidarity for the Palestinian cause tonight. And to me, more importantly, to see a large number of people whom normally Muslims around the world wouldn't have expected to turn up to an event like that. And when I go back to Malaysia in a few days, I think the most important photo that I will bring back is the one that I took with a group of the rabbis just now. Because in our society, we've been told, and there is this big misconception, that everything that happens in Israel with the Palestinians is blamed on Judaism. And the fact is there is a serious disconnect between the understanding from the Muslim perspectives around the world, from the Western perspective, from your society, from the Arab society. And this misunderstanding has been adroitly manipulated over the years to create the gulf that allow what happens in Israel, in Palestine, to continue until today. The best thing, I think, apart from all that have been said so far, I would like to concentrate and elaborate a bit more about the number one concerns of many governments in the world, mine included, is the issue of terrorism. We know that so long as the issue of Palestinian rights and justice is not addressed fairly, there can never be peace, not just in Middle East, but in other parts of the world as well. And over the last few months, my country, Malaysia, Indonesia, our neighbor, have seen a dramatic increase in the number of terrorism. Of course, the extent differs. You know, it's worse in Indonesia. It's getting worse. It's picking up in my country. And we all know that so long as the issue of Palestinian rights are not addressed, it will continue to be manipulated by wicked people to recruit impressionable young Muslims to vent out their anger about what's happening or what's not happening in Palestine. And to them, if I can't hit Israel, then fair enough, I'll just go to Iraq and Syria to do something about it. At least I'm doing something about it, even though I can't go and help the Palestinians. We know that's going to stay and it's going to get worse. And if we want to nip the problem in the bud, we really have to look at this urgently. And because of that, I think it's in the very best interest of the Western and British societies, British people, British public, and especially your government, to understand that the issue of Palestinian rights and justice is no longer about a faraway issue. The stake is yours, and it's here. Because unless you deal with it, and unless we deal with it globally and together, this is not going to stop. And what I'm most concerned with is that the Western and international community are risking your moral authority to talk about human rights, to talk about democracy, to talk about justice, so long as this double standard is perpetuated. Because the longer the problem of Israel continues, especially now when people feel that there's so much focus on what's happening in Syria and Iraq, not that we shouldn't focus on it, but the root cause of it has to be acknowledged as well, that it comes from the transgression and terrorism of the Israeli state. Unless this is addressed adequately and fairly, that double standard eventually, I think, will challenge the very foundation of the values that Western international communities preach around the world: the value of justice, the value of human rights, the value of democracy. Because people say, stop talking down to us. Look what you are doing. I mean, and it's not working. If you are like that, don't come to us and preach about how we should treat our own people, because we can see how you are dealing with your own citizens and other issues and so on. So I think, I don't want to repeat everything that you know. All of you here are here because you know, and you want to do something. What I'm most interested, and that's why we come all the way from the other end of the world, is that how do we want to move away from what we have been doing for the last 20, 30 years, because over and over again, the disconnect persists. The British public and your politicians, your MPs, do a lot of work in support of Palestinians, but that is not represented fairly by your governments, and successive governments, whether it's Conservatives or Labour. At least from my perspective, at the other end of the world, it doesn't change much. So we've got to address how is it that we want to do things differently, and that's where I think there's a unique opportunity, as Baroness Tonge mentioned just now. Ironically, because of Brexit, British people, your government, your country now, suddenly becomes the center of the world until you decide what you're going to do after this. People want to know about what British is going to do, because obviously it will have a lot of impact globally. And this is how I think there is a unique opportunity, because my country, Malaysia, for example, have a unique bilateral trade arrangements, especially with Britain. We are the 18th largest trading nation in the world. We have a seat in UN Security Council. Actually, we are quite influential as far as our dealing with Britain, with the EU, with the Americans, and with the Chinese is concerned. I suffer the same problem that all of us here suffer, which is our position, and Malaysia is a Muslim country, is not adequately represented by our government. And that's why over the last 30 years, as much as Malaysians have helped a lot and have been good friends of the Palestinians, a lot of what we do largely revolve around humanitarian aid. I do know it's good, but there's a limit to how is that going to change anything. And I'm looking at the clock. Can I have about 2-3 more minutes left? I think after this 1-week visit, I think we can bring back, at least to Malaysia and Indonesia and that part of the world, there are certain things that we can really concentrate, especially, and of utmost importance, is that I think it's high time that the MPs and civil societies take things directly and not leave it to our governments to represent our position. And in the case of Malaysia and Britain, there will be a lot of renegotiations, there will be a lot of relooking at arrangements, because, well, Britain is no longer part of the EU. There will be a lot of discussions after this. I think it's high time that parliamentarians begin to put a condition that unless certain positions are reflected or is addressed publicly and adequately by the British government, of course, we are not going to go forward with certain understanding that is asked for by the British government. Unless we see more commitment in certain areas, especially with regards to the Palestinians, and firmer positions against Israelis' transgressions, I mean, the British government cannot expect to come to us and say that, you know, we are good friends, can we get exactly the same deal that we used to have from the EU? I mean, these are the opportunities that hopefully we can leverage. And in societies like Malaysians and Indonesian societies, Palestinian issues are the single most sentimental issue. No politicians can survive if you stand against it. No politicians can win an election if you say that, hang on, let's support British government's position that is friendly to Israel. You just can't survive, not in our societies. And the other thing that, the final thing that I think we can work together after this, it is high time that we address this gulf of misunderstanding about what the British society and what the politicians feel about Palestinian issues from what is being represented by your government in my society. Because it's dangerous, because as far as the Muslims in the Far East is concerned, there is no difference between Grahame and David Cameron as far as your position on Israel is concerned. You know, I mean, they would have loved to hear what Baroness Tonge talked about just now. I mean, you would have been an instant superstar in Malaysia. Unfortunately, they've never heard that, because the only thing we've heard over a long time is the British government's position that is very friendly to the Israeli government. And therefore, it is important to bring your views directly to the Malaysian societies, to Indonesian societies, because bridging that gap will ultimately lead to more understanding, and eventually, I hope, British society as a whole will understand it is in their best interest to have more MPs like you who can bridge the gap of misunderstanding between Muslims and non-Muslims, because that is the only way to nip the problem of terrorism in the bud. And hopefully, after this, you know, I'm going to work, hopefully, that our next meeting, hopefully either will be in Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur, having all of you, especially the rabbis, presented in the Muslim communities of the Far East so that they understand the problem of Palestinians is a global issue, and the solidarity is shared globally by people of multi-faith, multi-party, and backgrounds and race. Thank you very much. I hope to see everyone.
Much, Rafizi. I'm left a little bit concerned for Grahame returning to Easington and trying to explain to his constituents that there's no difference between him and David Cameron. We've got about 15 minutes for questions, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions? Gentleman there with the checked shirt on first.
Yeah, I've got the roaming mic.
Just the gentleman there then, please.
I think I can probably be heard. Thank you.
Good.
Sorry, he has to use the mic. Sorry for recording that. I'm sorry.
For the translation.
Thanks very much to all the speakers. It was wonderfully complimentary what was said among the six of you. I wanted to address something to Jenny Tonge, please. Whilst I hope you're right that Brexit might bring this one consolation, well, probably quite a lot of consolations, given the special relationship that Israel has with Europe, you know, trading, sport and all sorts of things, it seems to me that a far bigger issue that will remain is the UK's special relationship with the USA, so-called special relationship. After all, most of the funding for Israel comes from the USA, and at the moment, that is still there.
Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Well, just very briefly, yes, of course I agree with you, but we can only do what we can do. And if we are independent and not have to agree everything with our European partners anymore, we should be able to act more freely, regardless of what the United States does. I won't go into the dangers of TPPIP or whatever it's called, because I'm afraid that we're going to jump from the frying pan of the European Union, so-called, I didn't think so, into the fire of TPP for short. But I want to take up what was said by the last speaker. I mean, this idea that if we want to trade individually with different nations all over the world, they are actually free to put sanctions on us. They can say, no, 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 wonderful, wonderful United Kingdom, we ain't going to trade with you unless you recognise Palestinian rights and force them to obey international law. Quite beautiful. Very neat.
Thank you very much, Baroness. There's a gentleman just there with a purple T-shirt on.
Yes, Paul Hugh Smith. First of all, I'd like to thank Haneen Zoubi for